everyone, and welcome to Naveem Connect, where spirituality meets the messy but beautiful reality of being human. I'm Jean, and joining me as always is my co-host Humphrey.
Thanks, Jean. Today we're diving deep into what it means to lead ourselves with purpose and spirit in a world that's constantly shifting. This conversation couldn't be more timely. The outer world is changing at lightning speed with AI, creating a storm of new demands, while the inner world is desperately calling for deeper wisdom and grounding. Many of us are feeling overwhelmed by the relentless pace, struggling to find our footing in a future that feels more uncertain than ever. To guide us, we have the empowerment guy, Doland White. With over 4 decades in top leadership roles, including CEO and COO, he's a master of transformation. Doland helps both individuals and companies turn potential into real results by developing clear strategies, cultivating personal effectiveness, and implementing practical systems that drive real impact. As the author of Lead with Confidence and the host of the Next Interview podcast, he's an expert in coaching, strategy, and personal growth.
In our first segment, The Inner Paradox, we set the stage for our journey into personal power. Here, we'll peel back the layers of what it truly means to navigate a complex world, exploring the often hidden tensions between our outward goals and the quiet internal struggles we all face. So Doland, thank you for joining us, and let's kick things off with this. You've spoken candidly about the weight of leadership. Let's broaden that a bit for our listeners. How is this weight of navigating life shifting as AI transforms our daily experiences? What new pressures are individuals experiencing?
That's a great question. And thank you for having me. And it's wonderful to be here with you. There's about 9 things packed in there. One of the
we like to start light. We like to start light.
Let's pick the hardest thing we can ask him and start there. But it's funny, Gene, with the question. I think it's funny because I do speak about this frequently with clients and in a bunch of different platforms that I'm out on. But one of the things I think that's really important for us is to start with one premise. And the one premise is that I remind all my clients and I remind folks that I work with that I'm coaching that there's really no such thing as work-life balance. There's only life. And what we do in our work is a component of our life. And there will be times when we're in balance and out of balance. And when you're out of balance, there's an additional weight that comes along with that. Because that's when we're out of balance and out of alignment with our dreams, our aspirations, the things that we want to do with our families and our loved ones or finances or all the different categories in our life. There's 4 or 5 categories that I talk about. And then that out of balance creates frustration. That frustration creates stress, and stress creates weight. And so spirit becomes a very strong component. Spirit's a very important part of how I deal with keeping balance in my life as best I can. At least sometimes hour to hour, my balance changes. But that's kind of what I do. It's interesting that you asked, because I think as we blend AI kind of into the picture, I think a lot of people tend to look at AI in the light of AI is going to replace a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And there's some fear and weight that comes along kind of with that thought, right? I'm going to be replaced by AI, and we lose track of the fact that up until today, right? And it could all be changed by the end of this. By today at 4:00, we've not reached singularity. So AI doesn't think, it doesn't breathe, it's not alive. AI functions as a tool. And as a tool, it means that we use AI as humans. And using AI as humans means that we're using our knowledge, our expertise, our experiences, and hopefully our spirit to use AI to help us create results that are meaningful, that are impactful, that really allow us to do more, to extend our reach and become better. I love, like for me personally, I built my own GPT just because I'm a geek at heart, as you both know. but mostly because I want it to ask me questions.
Okay.
And help me see insights that I may not, help me reveal things kind of that I may have forgotten, because we can, in the heat of the moment, forget important things
Yeah.
because we're really trying to move towards an outcome, or the phone is ringing, or I've got to go somewhere. So we tend to shortcut just based on some of the pressures. So I think there's that piece with AI where AI can help us do some things to recenter. AI won't replace spirit.
Yeah.
It won't replace, it brings the depth and breadth of knowledge of the entire planet, all the libraries that ever existed up until today, together inside the body of your phone or inside of the body of your computer screen. But I think that's really the tool. And when we can calm down and take a breath, there's this thing I talk about, take a Zen-like moment, right? Sit up straight, put your feet flat on the floor, take a breath. It's a 60-second meditation. And just recenter and remember the fact that you're using this. This is a tool that serves you. You don't serve it.
Yeah. I like that.
And because it's a tool that serves you, you can position it in that light. And treat it. It's funny because with my Chat GPT, I tell it thank you. Maybe that's weird, but it's kind of like thanks. And I taught it to call me coach, so it calls me coach all the time. So, I don't know. My iPhone calls me captain, but that's a whole different story. But I think that's, to your point, Jean, and kind of that question, maybe a long answer, but it really is kind of that perspective it's a precarious art, I think, to keep the balance.
Right.
Yeah.
And with the weight of things that are happening in life, plus there's external pressures around AI, and we hear about it all the time, and it's,
Right.
It's become pervasive, although AI is not a new topic. It's been around for quite a while.
Yeah.
15 years longer.
But it sort of exploded in the last few years. Like I think it sort of exploded into the masses in the last few years.
What's usable now? Before it was like theory or being worked on in the shadows, but now everybody can use it, chat with it, leverage it.
That's such a good point for both of you. I mean, it got commoditized.
Right.
It's kind of like if we think of like, if we're going to make a copy of a piece of paper, it's called a Xerox. Well, Xerox isn't the paper; it's the company that made
it. Yeah.
It became commoditized, right? I still go to Kinko's, even though it's not Kinko's anymore.
It's like Tupperware.
Right. Perfect. So when things are commoditized, we tend to take them for granted without really kind of thinking. There was a lecture I heard a few years ago about, we're now pissed off when we get on an airplane and there's not Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, well, wait a minute. The whole point in time where it was just amazing to be up in the air.
Yeah.
So, and because services become commoditized over time and we take them for granted.
Yeah.
And then there's assumptions that get made on, hey, this is going to do more. It's going to replace you. Youngest son, who we were talking about before we hit go on the podcast, is a copywriter. And he does SEO and copywriting for a really cool company. And we've talked about, and he, there's every now and then he'll go, I wonder if AI is going to replace me. It's like, it can't. Because there's a human nature that has to be there to interpret how we feel, how we recept, and how we connect. And I'm sure, you guys, you both, if you go read something, you can smell whether it's AI or not.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. You can tell. You can tell.
For sure.
Right? So anyway, so I hope that answers the question about the weight kind of that comes along with it.
Well, it brings me to another question. I was actually going to ask this later on, but I think, I'm going to strike while the iron's hot, is that since AI tools have the ability to make our lives easier, right? Give us time back to us, right? Then how can we, using that time, since we have more time, how can we fulfill our need for purpose, meaning, and authentic connection since we now have more time because AI is giving it back to us?
Yeah, that's such a great question. When we have, when we think about time, let's start with the fact that time is a man-made construct.
Yeah.
We put limits on time, 60 seconds, an hour, a minute, 24 hours in a day. We created that, science created, and we created that construct.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we have to do when we're able to use our time more effectively is avoid the construct and really think about the things that are non-negotiable to us. Like one of the things that's non-negotiable, and I'll come back to the value of time in a second, but one of the things that's non-negotiable is connection.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We just, and as a man, right? I suck at it because I'm a guy, right? Guys, we're guys. Two guys can sit alone in a room, watch an entire movie, not say a single word to each other for 3.5 hours, and not wonder if the other one's mad at them.
Yeah,
because we're guys. We're wired that way.
Yeah.
But so it's making a conscious effort to understand your wiring and limitation, and do the things that are non-negotiable, which is to keep connection, create connection, and make those connections meaningful. And sometimes it's just a gentle nudge or just a gentle reminder, that, hey, I got your back, or, I'm here for you. And that's, to me, that's high value time.
Yeah.
And those are things like I have a personal goal every day is to send 3 gratitudes, and I'll generally send them by text. I'll text 3 people a day and just tell them, hey, I'm grateful for blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure they look at it and go, is he dying? I mean, why am I getting this? So because not everybody kind of tends to think that way. It's gratitude sets a different pace for all kinds of things. So,
Yeah.
So I think when we have those moments, we have to look at it. And when I coach clients, I tell them there's really 2 ways to look at time. When you're going to do something, generally, if you think about it, just from a static vision, if I'm going to sit down and I'm going to work on an Excel spreadsheet, I'm going to get a 1-to-1 return. I'm going to spend 1 minute of time for 1 minute of value. If I'm investing in a relationship, then my return on that investment is 3-to-1, 5-to-1, 10-to-1.
Yeah. Because
it's about the doors that open over time, right? There's the law of reciprocity, which tells us if we commit to opulence and we do things for people, that's why I confuse my clients all the time with business. It's like, no, focus on the law of reciprocity. Just do good. Help other people, make a conscious effort to do that. They're not on the hook to do good for you, but the universe will.
Yeah.
And that's where I think with time back, that's where we need to be more conscious with that kind of effort.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've been really into synchronicity lately. And the other day I was reading about a Harvard study that was talking about how they've done a study over time with a group of people as they've aged. And they found that the greatest predictive measurement of how somebody's going to age, both in health, but in life fulfillment, is based on their relationships and how deep their connections are with other people.
Yeah,
so,
that makes sense.
Yeah. So like the ones in the study, the ones that really performed well, both in health and also fulfillment and life scoring, were actually the ones that had the deepest relationships with people, not in terms of quantity, but quality.
Yeah, that's such a great thing. There's now at 72, I focus on longevity, right?
Yeah.
Give me at least another couple of weeks, we're good to go. But when I think about it, it's funny you mentioned that, Jean, because Linda, my wife, read me a study. For those of you listening to the podcast, if you hear Linda, that's my wife. That's 40 years, right? There you go. But she read me a study, and it supports what you're talking about, Jean, about grandparents, adults, people my age. We live longer when we have grandkids. And it's because of the depth of the relationships and that desire to, to be around. Like my 4.5-year-old granddaughter, we were talking about her the other day, and I would love to be here to see her go down the aisle someday.
Yeah.
So whatever happens, I want to see her go to college and, do all the things in her life. So it is that part. And I love that, the kind of that thought around that, how we, from a life perspective, it's the quality of the people that we hang out. We're the sum of the 5 people we hang out with.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
So
For sure.
That's true. Since you mentioned that, Dolan, because my mom is in the same boat as you are, right? She keeps moving the goalposts. Now my mom's older, right? But she keeps in the goalposts. She just like, well, now I gotta, once in a while she goes, wait, what year is my youngest one in? And I was like, oh, she's just starting high school. Oh, okay. So I need to see her graduate. All right. So I need to be there. Like, so, every few years, like, that's my next goal. That's my goal. So that's my goal. All right, Mom.
That's awesome. It's that fun. And you see that in your lives, it's kind of like, as you're, Jean, being, not to explore our personal lives. We've all known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
Long time.
Regine, with you, newly married, relatively newly married, and there's aspirations that we have that we want to be with these people, and that synchronicity and that goal, that mutual idea, mutual commitment to accomplish that.
Yeah,
it's way powerful.
Yeah,
it's when you don't have that bad stuff happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Humphrey and I just recorded our last episode, which was talking about why spirituality was essential. And there was a data point in there talking about how adults, I think it was like 81% of adults felt lonely. Mm-hmm. Right. And there's a level of like, we're talking about the connections that we have, but based on the data set, right, 81% of adults feel disconnected.
Sure.
Right. And I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a well, there's a lot of things that have created that or exacerbated it over the last few years. The pandemic didn't help, isolation didn't help.
Yeah.
We've moved now to a society of headlines rather than in-depth kind of analysis and thinking, and we tend to accept things at surface value. So that, and I think that I love that you mentioned that, Jean, because I think then that creates the gaps, right? And that gap, right, with having that commitment to relationships and taking the time and the work to create it. Once you're kind of in that gap, you don't know how to come back.
Yeah. I mean, that brings us back to AI, right? Because there's that concern too. Like, is AI creating a larger gap? Right? Or is, how do we recommend individuals, how do they address this isolation while they're kind of navigating their spiritual transformations and growth, because AI is now given that time back to them, but also AI kind of silos us all, right, a little bit with technology. So what do we recommend individuals to do with that? Or what's the perspective they should have? How can they address it?
Yeah, I think technology in general can create the gaps.
Yeah.
We have, AI is just part of it, but, we have people that make a study of neuroscience, right? And how to create an app on a phone that's going to do a dopamine hit, which is what creates, addictions to social media. The dopamine hit creates addiction to pornography. The dopamine hit creates all of those things, and it's easy to kind of, to slip into those. And when those gaps occur, and I think addiction's a big word and can be misconstrued, right? Because we tend to think of drugs and alcohol and, other kinds of things, but it can be misconstrued. And I think that addiction in turn, which can be AI as well, because it's a component of all those things, creates that gap. And that's when people begin to lose touch, and we tend to be more comfortable there than having to come out and have conversations are tough.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard for people to understand that I'm okay if you don't agree with me.
Yeah.
How do
That's
we,
okay.
Dolan? You have a lot of. I mean, you've helped. You were talking before the podcast. You made a lot of connections, a lot of industries, right?
Sure.
And careers. Given all your experiences, and especially your coaching career now, how do you recommend? What would you say is the best way to address that? Is it more like going into a spiritual sort of dimension, like going more into a spiritual side? Is it more like reaching out? Like, what would you say is, what can we do, right, or what can people do to address that? Because like you said, the statistics are, horrible and growing, right? Like people are, and it's all over the world. It's not just in the U.S. I live in Ireland, and it's even worse here. So, from your perspective, given your experience of especially guiding people to transformations, right? And we lived through technological transformations in the past, right? The internet. We were talking about Wi-Fi, but the internet, right? Back in the 2000s, when those things come out, we had to live through those. But I feel for some reason feels this time around, it's a more drastic change. But it's not just that. It's, as you mentioned, because of everything that's been leading to this. So what would you say is the best way to, or what can people do to overcome that?
Well, I think it's a deep question. I think one of the things that people forget is that we all have to recognize that we're spiritual beings. And it doesn't mean whether we're, Baptists, Muslims, Buddhists. It's a level playing field. We're all spiritual beings. And spirit is a piece of who we are. Even if you're an atheist, spirit is still involved.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because there's still a flame and there's still inspiration and still desire. You may not attribute it to a higher power.
Right.
But it all still exists. So it's it's a level playing field.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the challenges that people have is just there's this, I think, and you probably have experienced this with Naveen, I think people have a tendency to think that to begin to understand spirituality is like a big step. I'm gonna take this huge step and I'm gonna go do it.
Yeah.
And it isn't. Uncovering your spirituality is a single small step that you do every day.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And it's a practice. And it's a practice. And I suck at it, to use a technical term. Like one of my practices is I try to allow myself at least 7 minutes a day to meditate. And there's days I do and days that I just don't, because it doesn't cross my mind, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'd rather have the habit than my phone remind me. So I think people have this tendency to think, Humphrey, that, I've got to do this big thing to be spiritual. And they disassociate spirituality with family, business, success.
Right.
It gets disassociated and gets kind of put in its own little compartment, kind of like being in a closet. I'm a closet meditator. Right?
Yeah. No, it's true. That is so true.
When really, if you're applying those principles, there's micro moments, little tiny things. Like if you're a business person and you're listening to this and you're going to head into a meeting, before you get up out of your chair or out of your office or get on a Zoom call or whatever you're going to do, take 3 minutes before that call and take 60 seconds and just take a breath.
Yeah.
And ask yourself one question: what would I love?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? Why does this move me closer to my ideals? How do I help them move closer to their ideals? And so I think there's that side of it from a spiritual perspective. And maybe I lost track of your question through all of that.
No. You're right.
But I think that's really, really important. And the other thing too that I tell my clients, I do 3 things with my clients. It is, I help them begin to take small steps. Mm-hmm. and sons and family without them knowing that they're doing it, which is great because then there's a shift that occurs over time.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I love to do with clients is, like, I have a client out there that helps other people write their books. And I've been coaching them now since early in the year. And every time we're on a coaching call with Doland, we start with gratitude. We go all the way around the horn, and everybody shows a gratitude. And I tell them, there's no rules. You guys don't have to be grateful for each other, but there's something in your life that you're grateful for. Yeah. So let's just start with centering with, let's just say thanks for something.
Right.
And then let's get on to the action of what it is that we need to go do. So small steps, just be grateful, just say thank you. And then be comfortable with the fact that you're going to mess it up. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. And have a mental mindset that says, I missed my opportunity to meditate today. I'm going to meditate tomorrow. And because one day does not create a habit, it just means you missed it.
Right.
Get over it and move on. And be consistent. Stay in a study, stay with it. And I think people start to feel that, hey, wait a minute, this stuff about the spirit of business and spirituality and who we are starts to level the playing field. And we tend to think more like people that are all trying to move together towards a common outcome rather than a bunch of silos.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about what you said, Dawn, that two things. One is the babies, so it's all baby steps, right? Little steps every day,
Yeah.
And the fact that people have this concept of spirit and spirituality, as I love to say, the closeted meditator or something like that. But it is all connected. And I think that's because, as Jean mentioned earlier, the podcast that we recorded, Bruce's one, the last one that we shared, that's what we were trying to say. That was one of the main points, right? It's like, look, it's all connected, right? It's all, at the end of the day, everything's connected. So you can look at life, and you started the podcast today saying it's life. It's whole life, right?
Yeah, there's a goal. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I've had I've been blessed. I got to know. I don't know. I'm sure you guys know who Bob Proctor is, and I got to be great personal friends with Bob, and who could talk like a sailor when he needed to. But we used to talk about that. There's a golden thread that stitches all of that together. Mm-hmm. There is no work, grocery store. It is life.
Yeah.
Right.
And spirit is what stitches all of that together and makes it meaningful. There's things you have to do and work. You have to take action. Like, one of my favorite things is an old Bob Proctor saying, when all else fails, get to work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, Dolan, because when you talk about the spirit, I equate it to anything that has consciousness, right?
Yeah.
Has a spirit, right? And I think, I really can see why gratitude opens up a lot, because being thankful for something, right, opens up this positivity towards, like, being appreciative of what you have, and therefore understanding that it could be worse, or there's a lack there. Yeah. It could be a lack thereof, but yes. it generates this positivity of, well, I appreciate what I have, and then I feel like the universe is willing to kind of give you more because you're appreciative of what you get. But also, from let's say, if you don't believe any of that, the perspective is different when you see that you have something, when the glass is half full versus when the glass is half empty, right? Your mindset is completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. That becomes a shift. And it's funny, Jean, because I think there's one of my clients, there's a book written by Wallace Wattles called The Science of Getting Rich. And there's an exercise that I've done in there.
Great book.
Yeah. Great. Exercise chapter 4, 7, 11, and 14. Those 4 chapters. And so I'm working, one of my clients, I gave them the homework of for 90 days, I want you to read 4, 7, 11, and 14. And I'm going to read it with you. And if we miss a day, the count goes to 0.
Okay.
So it might take you a year to get to 90 days.
Right.
There's no skipping days. But it does come down to that, to your point, Jean, and it is about that thinking stuff. It is about our perspective, how we think. And I think a lot of people also from a gratitude, there's 3 coins to gratitude. There's one coin that you keep in your hand that is, I'm grateful for what I have in this moment. There's a coin that says, I'm grateful for what I had in my past. And then if you had a third hand, there's a coin that says, I'm grateful for what's coming in the future. Mm. And you may not have your gratitudes may not cover all 3 of those coins at once. But if you think about that, our past helps shape us because we either behave that way or we've made a decision not to behave that way. We've learned from it and improved. And then we're grateful for what we have today, which is to draw a breath. And then I'm grateful for what's coming in the future. And I'm going to be 73 next year. So I'm happy for that.
Yeah.
There you go. So I love that, Dolan, because that naturally guide us into what we're going to do our second segment, which is like purposely living in the age of AI. But you already started with the whole it's interesting. You just started talking about the spirit, how the spiritual principles you do, like being grateful, connecting with people, help us guide us to live to life and work at the same time, right? And help us go through it. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to look at it from, again, taking the AI concepts into it. How do we move forward, and leverage AI to enhance our human potential, right? And enhance those connections, right? Instead of diminishing it, which is what a lot of people are fearing, right? So, and Jean, I'll start with one of these questions. So a lot of people fear, Dawn, that AI is going to make their roles or their skills obsolete. Right? We're talking about your son that he worries sometimes. He may do that. How do we address these concerns to people, right? And how do we move forward with embracing that innovation, right? That is coming, but at the same time, and addressing that on a personal level.
Yeah, that's a great question, Humphrey. And I think there's a couple of things. And to your point, you said this earlier in the podcast about the fact that we've seen multiple
transformations,
right? Yeah. And being a technologist, we know things like Moore's law. We know, right? And although it's really not a law, but it was made up, and we assume it's a law. But someday it'll become a law. We never know. So when we're, I think one of the things that people, rather than looking at AI as that threat, as an inward threat, I would tell people that all the time. Look at AI as what's the opportunity? Mm-hmm. What is it that AI can do for me that allows me to have an opportunity to learn something new, to do something different, to improve my skills? And AI can go do that. There's a human exercise that I recommend to my clients all the time, and it's take a piece of paper, draw 3 columns. So you got 3 columns. In one column, it's what I do today. In the middle column, it's what am I going to delegate? And in the third column, it's what am I no longer going to do? Mm-hmm. And move things, if you're looking to recover time, move things from that, what am I doing today, into the delegation. Who else can do it for me? AI could be that category, right? And then when you're going through that list, you suddenly realize the value of some of the things that you're doing is meaningless. Like nobody cares, right? Does not matter. So you don't do those things, which in turn allows you to open a door, and then you can explore. That's where as humans, we have a natural tendency to be curious. We want to know stuff, which is why we explored, why we do things we do, why we invent, because we're curious.
Yeah.
What if we ask these questions? What if? So then it gives you that ability to say, look, if I can move some of these things from my column to I'm never doing this again because nobody gives a shit, to, this is a PG-13. I won't use bad words.
No, that's good. That's good.
Or
Good.
to that center column, I'm going to delegate it. But then you begin to explore what other things can I do that either would let me be more fulfilled or create a new skill, and you can begin to explore that. And I think we lose when we're threatened. There's the
Right.
3 parts of our brain, right? And the very core part of our brain is the very little tiny peanut of our brain is called the reptilian brain.
Mm-hmm.
That's the piece, right, where we react, and it is fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
So that when we're being pressured and being told this is going to replace you, this is terrible, it's like, okay, what can I give it to do? And what else can I do that's going to improve my stance, my position, my economy, my life?
Right.
And I'll gratefully give that to it. I think, that's maybe kind of a mamby-pamby answer to it, but there is always the risk of, a lot of companies have said, hey, we're letting go of our customer service department and we're moving everything over to AI. It's fun to watch the trends of companies that do that, because we're starting to see the needle push back up to people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because when I want to talk to someone. I don't want a chatbot. I want to hear I got a question.
Yeah.
And it's okay if they don't know the answer, as long as they go get it for me.
Right.
So I think that we'll see this tug of war back and forth from an AI technology perspective around it's everything. Well, it's not as much as we thought it was going to be. Let's reset a little bit. And that there will always be that need for people until it reaches singularity. And then at that point in time,
Well, I always feel like humanity is interesting because we need something to show us the opposite of that, right? And maybe that's what AI is, right? The interaction with AI shows us that we actually need interaction and connection with real people.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Well said. There's good weight in that, Jean, because I do think it does prove its point.
Yeah.
Which is we got to have that connection.
And going back to gratitude, right? Gratitude has so many names, right? It's gratitude. It's the growth mindset, right? Yeah. It's optimism. It's, all these, it's hope, right? Like it's all these words, but it's a different word for the same meaning, right? True. And what's interesting is when you look at, I read somewhere, I can't remember where, but usually when people are depressed or they have anxiety, they say it's the disparity between their expectation and reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And so
very true.
So in my head, I'm like, when you apply that gratitude or that growth mindset into that paradox of, the expectation versus reality, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like that's it helps a little bit, right? Because if you have that gratitude, or if you're looking at it from a positive standpoint,
sure,
then your expectation is always on par with what your reality is if you apply gratitude and growth to that reality, right?
Yeah. It's funny you say that. As you were talking about that, Jean, I was thinking about, and I think the root, a lot of what happens is the root of it's fear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, when fear is, I get to talk about fear all the time. Because we all fear, no matter what, we all have nerves, and we all are, there's, fear of other people's opinions, right? FOPO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. There's stuff.
What did you just say? FOPO?
FOPO, fear of other people's opinions.
Nice.
So we got FOMO and FOPO. I love it.
There's FOMO and FOPO.
Awesome.
One of my favorite rules around that is what other people think of you is none of your business. So,
I love it.
But fear becomes a factor in there because fear, we don't fear things in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And we generally don't fear things in the moment unless we're in proximity to some danger or something
Right.
that, fires off that part of the brain. But we fear the future, and we fear the future because it's different.
Mhm.
And I don't know what that's going to be like. I'm
And
not
it's unknown.
sure.
We don't know what's exactly. We
I don't know. This is
I
unknown.
mean, for me, I think if I'm speaking personally here, for me, I have fear, right? And a lot of the fears come from like, am I going to be enough? Will I be
Sure.
perfect at this thing? All these fears of, and a lot of it ends up being kind of like the voices in your head, the self-doubt, right? And
Yeah.
I find it that in my spiritual practice, having worked on kind of my fears or gratitude or all, and taking time in meditation, taking space, is
Mhm.
that you come to this realization that like you're not going to be perfect. Right. And so it lessens that fear. It doesn't take the fear completely away. You still have that instinctive fear, like, that happens, but you realize, you take the pressure off by understanding that you're probably never going to be perfect, right? You've made mistakes in the past, but like you said, you don't fear the past, right? Because you can see like, oh well, actually those mistakes, you can take accountability for them, you can rectify those things, and you can learn from it, right? Which is the biggest part of it. And I
Yeah.
think being able to then give yourself a little bit of grace, right? And understanding you can't be perfect also allows you to have deeper connections with other people, because you
Hmm.
can give them grace, understanding that they're not going to be perfect in the interactions that you have with them, when the interactions that they have in the world. And if you can give yourself grace, you can give other people grace.
Yeah. Very true. And I love the way you said that, because it is about that starting with ourselves, right? When generally a lot of times there's when I talk to people about fear or when you see something going wrong inside of a business, don't look at
Mm-hmm.
your team, look at you.
Yeah.
Look at you. Then go look at your team.
Yeah.
Where are you out of alignment? What are you fearing? And then go look at your team, and then
Yeah.
double check that. But check yourself at the door first. And it is funny because there was a couple things you said there I think they're really important for the listeners, and there were a couple of sentences you said. What if I'm not enough? What if I'm not
Right.
going to be? And going to be means tomorrow,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and we're not there.
Yeah.
Um, one of
Maybe
my
that's why one of the spiritual practices is being present.
Could be. Maybe,
Oh,
maybe present in the moment. Yeah, one of my favorite, and probably the last thing on fear is one of my favorite wise sages in the world is this guy named Will Smith, who is in all these movies and all this kind of stuff. But I heard him once say, "God put the greatest things in life on the other side of fear,"
Mm,
that's true. That's true.
and I
yeah.
remind myself that, because there's stuff that I do that's, I look at it and go, "Holy goodness gracious." See, I didn't say it, Humphrey. I used other words. But you step through the door and you're okay.
Yeah.
It's true. So,
You're
but to
okay.
that point, though, me, I have something in Puerto Rico. We have a saying. So, fear is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't take you anywhere.
Mm.
Yeah, love that.
That's it.
Love that.
That's
Such a
it.
good. I'm going to borrow that, by the way. I'm going to. Yeah.
That's it. So to that point, what we want, so there's a couple points that we've been talking about in the conversation that I like, right? So
Sure.
it sounds like connection is important. So having connection to people is important.
Mm-hmm.
Doing things, little steps, things, whether it's being grateful or connecting with someone, doing some sort of practice daily, even if it's try to build a routine, even if you miss it, but trying to do something to get
Mm-hmm.
in that, to get in that connection to the spirit. And sounds like what we're landing is in the not being fearful. Well, we don't know. It's like, look, it's okay. Like, it's a human trait. I think we could call it. It's a human trait. We're going to naturally we'll fear things that we don't know, but
Yeah.
we don't know. So
Yeah.
work towards finding those opportunities. And I like the way you positioned it earlier. It's like they are opportunities. There are things to. I see it to make us better, right? And there's more efficiency and so forth. But as Jean said, at the end of the day, we're going back to being human. Maybe it's a mirror showing us, look, what makes us human is that connection, that connectivity that we all have, which as we were talking, Jean, in our spirituality podcast, that's all it is, right? We're all connected. That's what makes this life worth it.
Well, I mean, this ties us perfectly into our final segment, which is
let's do it.
Which is
I'm just happy I got invited to be here long enough for the final. Nobody went, we're out. That's it.
Well, in our final segment, we're going to be focused on talking about human flourishing in an AI world, right?
Okay.
So in this last segment, we want to offer practical, actionable wisdom for everyone as we navigate the integration of AI into our lives. So,
good.
Doland, let's see. With AI reshaping our world with unprecedented speed, I mean, it's happening rapidly. What practices help individuals stay spiritually grounded when making decisions?
Yeah, a really good question. So, there's a whole 6-step process I teach people on how to make decisions.
Okay.
But it really comes down to one premise, and you kind of we've touched on this just a little bit so far, and that's be imperfect. When you know enough, you know enough.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to get to 100% knowledge and data and all of the stuff around to make decisions, then you've waited too long. Whatever you're making it, the opportunity's gone.
Yeah.
So the AI can be a really, really, there's a bunch of steps in that. Just very quickly, the very first step is when you're making a decision, ask yourself, is this decision in alignment with my core values? Mm. If I'm out of alignment with my core values, then the answer is no. I mean, it's like there's a gate, you're done.
Yeah.
If you're in alignment, then what information do I need? And AI is a phenomenal assistant to answer that question on what do I need to know?
Yeah.
And I've asked AI all kinds of weird stuff, and it goes and gets it for me. You got to weigh it, whether it's telling you stuff that's close to it or not.
Yeah.
So I tend to use several different AIs to give me answers without, doing a shameless plug for which ones I use. But I'll use 2 or 3 at least if I'm looking at something deeply.
Yeah.
And then I look at it and say, do I have 80% of the information I need to make the decision? And then, because I'm in alignment with my core values, I've got the information I need. Do I have 80% of what I need? And if I don't, I got to go back and get more information. Am I confident in the data that I've got? I mean, I'd have everything, but I also have our 3 parts, right? Our brain, our heart, and our intuition. Mm-hmm. So based on those 3 parts of who I am I in alignment with what I have? And then the last thing I always simply is what's the cost of the decision? Because if I make a decision to do this, I can't do that.
Right.
So weigh the value of the decision that you're making? It's kind of that final piece. There's other things that happen after that, but in a nutshell, that's kind of the way it goes. And AI, I think, has a huge role in that, Gene, because I think AI can't help you make the decision. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like I never asked ChatGPT, hey, I'm making a decision about, and it goes, oh, you're a moron. Or I wouldn't do that, but I ask it for, I tell it, hey, I'm thinking about, and I need information on this perspective, this perspective, mm-hmm. this perspective. Give me that information. And then I love to ask AI, are there any perspectives I'm not seeing? Because the key thing about being an executive or doing anything from a decision perspective is that ultimate question of what am I not seeing?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you may get a prompt that comes back and says, well, I don't think you've seen this. That gets you to that 80% where you can then make a decision to call the ball and, weigh the cost. So I think AI plays a huge part in that. But one of the things that people need to do through that process is, because it is such a new technology, and I don't think it's a generational thing. A lot of people talk about the fact that, old people don't go learn new technology and blah, 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 blah. They just don't do it, right? Which is, I think, a misnomer. My mom is 91 and I get more technology from her than I can shake a stick at. So sometimes she doesn't know she's sending it to me, but that's a different problem. But there is that. I would encourage people, go learn where it becomes important for the decision-making process is go learn how to work with AI.
Yeah.
Go take a course, go read a book, go talk to somebody, go figure out, because we're all experimenting with it. We're all trying to do good stuff with it, and we're all learning.
Yeah.
All right.
Like I've got a couple of guys I share prompts with, and we've shared stuff together before, and go learn. And that gets you more into it. But I think that becomes a component of AI and decisions. And it can accelerate the process.
Yeah.
Dramatically accelerate that process.
Yeah. I think that's, Jean and I use it quite a bit for our business. But I think when you said acceleration of the process, that is the biggest impact that AI has when you embrace it, right? Is the speed, right? How things that, used to take, days, weeks, months of cases, it could just speed up that process. And I think that, with that context, right, it's like, so that gives us that concept of time, right? So if you use AI properly, it gives you that time back as a human, right? And that brings, one of the things that we've heard a lot of debate lately is, so AI is taking a lot of that work, that, let's call it busy work, but thinking work, that busy work that I was doing before. So what are the skills that are going to remain uniquely human, right? So if we had a crystal ball and start looking forward, so what are the skills, whether spiritual or emotional, that you feel down the line are going to be the skills that people need to have or not have, right? Because let's say we're all human, we all have it, but to develop more or spend time on,
like most valuable.
That we'll have most valuable, because we'll have this tool that will free up our time, right? Or take away the things that we used to spend time on.
Yeah. I think if you're gonna focus on your skills, and there's a lot of things around skills, right? Skills can be defined in things we need to work, things we have passion about, things that we want, that we have an aspiration to go learn. Mm-hmm. So I can learn a skill to be better at work. I can learn skills that I'm passionate about. Like I love learning new stuff about music all the time. And then there's things that we have down the road that we want to go do. Like for me, I love photography. So I study photography, right? And go experiment with stuff all the time. Much to, my granddaughter's chagrin. Stand there, let me take a picture. No. I'm taking it now. But I think, from a skills perspective, if for people in general, there's an opportunity. I would think that use this as an opportunity to learn how to I'm going to try to figure out how to say this clearly. Learn how to reconnect. There are skills in how there's a law that I teach. I'm writing a book called Doland's Laws, and one of my laws, one of my laws is authenticity can't be faked.
Oh my God. We talked about this in our last podcast. Mm-hmm. That's it.
So, 100% agree. Well, I'll give you guys co-credit for that law. So I'll say according to Jean. Anyway, but from a skills perspective, it is I would tell people do a couple things. The very first thing is focus on passion. What skills develop in your passion, right? That you're passionate about, and generally that's outside of the body of what we call work, right? Because we get up and go to work, right? Although I don't anymore. I get up and go to fun every day, but focus on passion, which is intrinsic. That's us. Extrinsic is focus on the skills that help you improve your role in whatever career you're serving, right? Because the goal with any career is overserve the role you were hired for.
Okay.
Don't just do what you were hired to do. Do more than what you were hired to do. People will only rise to the level of expectations that are set for them. So set an expectation for yourself that you're going to do. So focus on those things and self-evaluate over a period of time. We're always going to need to. I think one of the skills that we've lost, I would love to see people spend more time on, is how do we communicate and be comfortable with the fact that we're wired different. We have different cultures. We have different. But let's get comfortable with the fact that we don't have to be in conflict.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't. Conflict in its moment is good because it creates friction.
Right.
Friction is good because it creates momentum. So let's use conflict in the proper way. So let's focus on how do we. It happens in organizations, companies, families, right? Although there's probably never any conflict in either one of your families. There is. Generally, in my family, I thought you don't remember. It's like, yeah. So, yeah, I told you anyway. Not to share something deeply personal, but I would really say from a human perspective. Let's focus on those things. We can learn. The cool thing, I think, H, is we can learn, Humphrey, is we can learn skills. Anybody can be taught anything. We look at the amount of things, and Jean, and for you, look at the amount of things we've learned in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Right.
At this point in all of our lives, we've forgotten more than we've learned.
Yeah. That's for sure.
That's very true.
Right? And it's because we don't practically apply it. So it's an opportunity for us to kind of regroup, and what I would tell people is focus on the things and focus on the things that matter.
Yeah. Which
is the extrinsic value that I bring to other people or bring to my role, and the intrinsic value that I bring to myself, which is my passion.
As I'm hearing you talk, I don't know where I remember this from, so I'm going to try to say it as clearly as possible, but there was something where I read that in our society today, we value IQ over EQ.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And what I hear you saying is that we need to focus more on our EQ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's to get down to the nub of it, there's one of my buddy Blaine and that I'm partnered with in a bunch of stuff. We talk about the fact that our life is a collection of relationships.
Yeah.
Right.
If you think of a company, like what you're doing in Naveem together, it's a collection of relationships.
Yeah.
And it is that EQ that gives it, which means it's human. Life would be so much easier if there weren't other people.
Yeah.
Right.
Goodness gracious, right? I could go to McDonald's every day and not anybody tell me I can't. So, but when we think about EQ is that balance.
Yeah.
In that collection of relationships. And I think that's the things that AI can't bring us. AI can't bring us EQ. AI can teach us stuff. Like I learn all kinds of things from it. I'll ask it questions like, I've been having problems with my tomatoes. What's going on with my tomato plants?
Yeah.
And it gives me ideas on things to do. And it's helping my tomato plants.
Yeah.
But there was no, other than the fact that I'll have nicer tomatoes.
Yeah. Well, how do we create? So, we need to create a safe personal space for people so that we can kind of discuss our fears and even our hopes about AI without necessarily being resistant to the change that's happening. Because, regardless of whether you're resistant to the change is happening, right? So how do we create,
Yeah.
like a psychologically safe space for people to talk about it?
Yeah, I think the short answer to that, I don't think I've given a short answer yet, is the short answer to that is just being vulnerable. A lot of times I think we, when we are with other people, whether it's in business or family relationships or wherever we are, we tend to pigeon I call it the five. I teach this thing called the 5 lies. But one of the lies is I have to have all the answers all the time.
Mm.
And I think there's a thing that has to occur when you look at someone and you have to tell them, it's like, you know what? I'm not sure how this is going to work. I don't know what this means. How do you feel about it? Do you feel the same? Are you? And fundamentally, you're giving them permission to one. I think when you admit that you're fearful or nervous or concerned,
Mm-hmm.
it abates.
Yeah.
Because we've spoken it.
Yeah.
Right.
And once you speak it, it's kind of like, well, actually, maybe it's not so bad as I thought, it was going to be.
Right.
But I think by the fact that, and it goes back to, and you guys talked about this happen in your last podcast about being authentic. I think when we're really authentic and we're not pretending with each other,
Yeah.
and we're cool about just saying, hey, look, you know what? I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but let's go try this.
Yeah.
What do you think? And you get people involved in that process in your life, in your family, and in stuff around you. Although in my house, I just do what I'm told, but it's what you do. My success to marry, do what you're told. But it gives people that permission to be vulnerable. And because most people were worried about, it's interesting. I did a podcast interview with a gentleman named Brian Burke a couple of weeks ago, and Brian and I were talking. And he's a young guy, and he runs a company called Food First Travel. And what he does is not to give him a promo, but
go for it. Promo the hell out of it. Go for it.
Yeah, promo. I'll tell Brian, dude, I gave you a promo. But we really, really enjoyed the conversation. And what his company does is it's a white glove concierge where they send people out to trips internationally to Michelin star restaurants. Mm-hmm. So you can go on a trip, and rather than just going to Rome and not knowing where you're going, he sends you to Rome, and it's a white glove. There's a Michelin star and blah, 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 blah. So it's really vulnerable, right? Because you really want that experience to be good. You don't want to have these people pay you a lot of money and you send them out there and their meal sucks.
Right.
So although he's curated enough that it doesn't really go that way. But one of the things he said that really caught my ear was fear of failing in front of other people. It's not that we fear our failing. It's what we fear in failing in front of other people. And I think that's kind of part and parcel of what happens. So kind of what we're talking about, Jean, around, how do you, how does this work? So,
yeah.
I hear you. So let's let's go into the last question of today.
I'm ready.
So looking ahead, how do you envision the relationship between our spiritual growth and AI evolving over the next few years, over the next decade, let's say, right? So how do you see what new possibilities for human growth might emerge from that?
Oh boy. So the very first opportunity, I'm going to couch in a negative statement. I think with the emergence of AI, and because spirituality means a lot of things to a lot of people. We all have different ideas and concepts of spirituality, right? There's some that believe in afterlife. There's some that believe in multiple lives. There's, pre-existence, depends where you go. There's all kinds of things that go on around spirituality. Some believe in God, some don't, just stuff. I think it's going to get harder. And I think AI, just because of the pragmatic nature of AI and the fact that it is not spiritual, it has there's an opportunity for it actually to drive a wedge and make spirituality even harder. And or more of a challenge to communicate, right?
Yeah.
Like when I first met Bob Proctor, because I was CEO of a marketing company at the time, and I'm looking at my books and I'm seeing a lot of money on the books, and I'm asking, who is this? And they went, well, it's some company named Proctor Gallagher. And I went there and I went, who the hell's Proctor Gallagher? So I called them and went and sat in front of Bob, and it was Think and Grow Rich, and it was a bunch of stuff. And so I sat there like this, teach me something, old man. Right? Because it was all woo-woo stuff to me. It was all, And Bob's talking about paradigms and goals and gratitude, and I'm just going, I'm out. But by the time I ended up spending 3 days with him, I'm kind of going, well, maybe there's something here. So I ended up going to like 9 of his events, donating money, putting money in charity, in his house, doing stuff with Bob, right? And him torturing me the whole time, But I think one of the things that becomes really, really critically important is for us to remain consistent. So the emergence of AI is going to continue to commoditize.
Yeah.
And as AI becomes more commoditized, like you can make videos and you can change yourself into a monkey, and you can do, I see these videos of Sasquatch right out there and talking, right. So you can do all this stuff. You can commoditize it. And all that's kind of fun stuff. But the core of who we are, what becomes at risk is the fact that is easy. This is hard. Mm-hmm. And for those in the audio version, I'm pointing to the sky at AI and pointing back at me. This is hard because we're hard. We're complex things. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's a risk that in that commoditization. And that's why I think what you're doing, what Naveem is all about, and what attracted me to when you talked to me about, I'm going to go, we're doing this. And I thought this is cool because you're meeting people where they are to want to explore spirituality and learn more about what's important to them, but also may see new things that, like, what's this meditation thing mean? And it's not some old guy sitting on his, in a lotus position going, there's nothing to do with that. So I think that's what will happen with spirituality. And I think it's an opportunity for us to continue to focus on, I call it kind of all-encompassing life. It goes back to life again. Spirituality is a part of who we are, which means spirituality has to be part of work, has to be part of your family, has to be part of your relatives. It's got to be part of who you are. And I think AI, if I could pick a risk with AI, in my mind, that would be the risk because it's easy.
Yeah. As you're talking about Dolan, one of the reasons why we created Naveem, and I think one of Naveem's focus on personal discovery or self-discovery is so important, especially in this AI movement, is that when you say easy, you can go to AI and AI can tell you a lot of stuff, right? It can tell you a lot of facts. It can also hallucinate and tell you a lot about what they think that they know about you based on your chats, right?
Yes.
But ultimately, to be spiritually grounded, people don't tell you, the outside world should not tell you who you are. You should spend enough time with yourself in your spiritual practice to understand who you are, what your core values are, what your passions are, right? And so that in this AI world, when AI tries to tell you something that is counter to who you really are, you don't listen to it, right? Like there recently I've been seeing a bunch about like AI psychosis or something, where people are having conversations with AI and then all of a sudden, something snaps in their brain. And in my head, I'm like, if you spend enough time spiritually grounding yourself, and what that means to me is understanding you, connecting with yourself, right? And therefore being able to connect with others, really kind of can mitigate that risk a little bit, right? From AI or anybody else telling you who you are and what you believe, right?
Yeah.
Because
It's funny.
I take it back. Sorry, Dolan. I was going to say, while Jean was saying that, what I kept thinking was your answer for about decision making, right? And the steps that you use for decision making. And one of the things you mentioned is when you're about to make the decision, does it line up with, what I'm thinking, my heart, and my intuition? And I think to Jean's point, as we move forward, it's important for us to know ourselves well so that when we start getting other information or start inundated with whatever is coming, you can make that decision. You can say, is this aligned with who I am, right? This is what I'm thinking, my heart, my intuition, like, does this line up with me? Yes or no? And then move forward. So it goes back to your point. It all comes down to us as people, right? And humans, which we said, until it gets singular, until it achieves singularity, it's not going to replace. It's not going to try. But that's what makes us special, right? Is that connectivity, that ability for us to understand who we are, what makes us unique, and then look at other things that come in through that lens and make decisions.
Yeah, I think both of you well said. I think it's funny because I think if you went out to, in your audience, if you or other people that you meet and you ask them, tell me your core values. I think we would probably not be surprised with how many people can't answer that question.
Yeah,
that's true.
A lot of people can't even answer what makes you happy.
Yeah, they don't know, right? Yeah. They don't know. What are your, tell me, give me your favorite daily affirmation. They don't know. How do you measure? How do you measure yourself?
Yeah.
It goes back to kind of both your points. I think it really comes down to a willingness for us to know who we are and not accept. It's non-negotiable. If this is not in alignment with who I am, then the answer is no.
Yep.
Then I don't, and that's the barrier, I think, with AI. So that's my last thought.
I like it. My friend, we explored so much today, from facing what we call the paradox of navigating life to cultivating purposefully living, and what we say truly embodying the human flourishing in an AI world. I want to truly thank you, Doland, for sharing your wisdom and your presence with us today.
It's an honor. It's an honor. I care deeply about both of you, so it's an honor to be here.
Doland, we care about you too, and thank you again from the bottom of our hearts. What truly stands out from our conversation is this beautiful idea. AI doesn't lessen our need for spiritual connection. It actually makes it stronger. Technology can make things incredibly efficient, but it's only when we're grounded in our spirit that we can make sure these advancements truly help humanity. When we bring AI into our lives with wisdom, presence, and an open heart, instead of fear, we create personal spaces and a future where both innovation and the human spirit can truly flourish.
As we wrap up, I invite all of you, our listeners, to try what I call the tech spirit balance in your own lives this week. When you're making any decision, especially one involving technology or change, just pause for a moment and ask yourself, how does this choice serve both innovation and the human heart? Notice how this simple question might change your approach to everything. And if you're ready to go deeper on your personal and spiritual journey, you can connect with Doland White directly as a coach on Naveen.com. Until next time, this is Humphrey and Jean signing off. Stay connected, stay kind, and keep exploring the incredible journey of human and spiritual potential.